are going to colonize the moon. But is that even legal? Eugene Cernan and Harrison Schmitt, during the Apollo 17 mission, were the last man to visit the moon. They spent about 3 days on the lunar surface to collect samples and conduct scientific experiments.
Dad, you're looking good.
Beautiful, guys, beautiful.
That was in December 1972, over 50 years ago.
We leave as we came, and God willing, as we shall return, with peace and hope for all mankind. Godspeed the crew of Apollo 17.
This statement marked the end of the Apollo era of manned lunar exploration. But that is about to change.
There's a lot out there to explore. And this is the next beginning.
Currently, every large space organization is aiming for a lunar comeback, and their ambitions extend beyond just revisiting the moon. They want to build a sustainable presence. Leading the charge is NASA. With their Artemis program, they want to land the first woman and the next man on the moon, with plans to set up a lunar base by 2028 as a stepping stone for future Mars missions. The European Space Agency proposes a Moon Village, a collaborative project inviting international partners to create a sustainable lunar settlement.
So my hope is that we will really have a really global exploration scheme on the moon.
And then there's private companies like SpaceX and Blue Origin who are also stepping up their lunar exploration game. SpaceX's Starship is being designed for crewed lunar missions, while Blue Origin's Moonlander focuses on delivering cargo to the moon's surface and returning astronauts home. Not to mention the ambitious plans of Russia, Japan, China, and India. So it's safe to say that the moon is turning into a real estate hotspot.
This seems like a great place, but can anyone claim a piece of the moon? What if you wanted to build your own lunar base here? Houston, is this even legal?
Alright, so let's take a step back. Exploration isn't new to mankind. Throughout history, we have ventured into uncharted territories, driven by curiosity and the promise of discovery. But with exploration comes the question of ownership and use, especially in the case of lands and water that do not obviously belong to one nation. This brings us to a pivotal concept of the 17th century that is similar to the current space situation: Mare Liberum. Coined by Hugo Grotius, a Dutch legal philosopher, Mare Liberum, or the free sea, argued for the free use of the world's oceans for navigation and fishing. It was a groundbreaking idea, advocating that our vast oceans should be open and could not be claimed by any nation. This concept emerged as a response to the maritime disputes and claims of ownership by naval powers of the time, and laid the foundation for modern international maritime law. Now, as we set our sights beyond Earth, the same principles become relevant again. The moon, much like the open seas of the past, represent territory beyond national borders, a celestial open sea. The moon's potential for scientific discovery, resource utilization, and even habitation raises profound questions. Can one nation or a private entity claim a part of the moon? Or should the lunar surface be free to use by all, like the international waters on Earth?
the tension is growing after NASA Chief Bill Nelson told a German newspaper, "We must be very concerned that China is landing on the moon and saying, 'It's ours now and you stay out.'"
污蔑中国。
The Chinese Foreign Ministry quickly accused Nelson of, quote, lying through his teeth, blasting the U.S. for militarizing space.
This leads us to a significant legal framework governing space activities, the 1967 Outer Space Treaty. Established before the first human moon landing, this treaty represents a global consensus outlining the basic legal principles of space exploration. It's a lengthy document, so let's only look at the most relevant principles. Firstly, the treaty declares that the exploration and use of outer space, including the moon, shall be carried out for the benefit and in the interest of all countries. It also mentions that every nation has equal rights to explore and use outer space and explicitly refers that there shall be freedom of scientific investigation in outer space. The treaty further states that celestial bodies are not subject to national appropriation by claim of sovereignty, use, or occupation. In essence, this means that no country can claim the moon as its territory. The treaty also mandates that activities in space should be carried out for peaceful purposes. It expressly prohibits the placement of nuclear weapons or any other weapons of mass destruction in space. But some say that there is a loophole in the treaty. While the Outer Space Treaty forbids nations from claiming sovereignty over lunar land, its stance on private entities is less clear. But even before the rise of private space companies, there were already debates about whether national space organizations can legally claim and utilize lunar resources, which is crucial if you plan to achieve any form of sustainable presence. For example, sending water to the moon is really expensive. And why do so if you can just melt the available ice? The Moon Treaty from 1979 was supposed to tackle such questions. However, its limited ratification, especially by key spacefaring nations like the United States and Russia, leaves notable gaps in its effectiveness.
Also tonight, Russia staking its claim in a new space race to the moon and Mars. A Russian probe expected to land on the moon's south pole any day now, in an area that could be critical for the future of exploration beyond the moon.
So let's test the legal framework against a real-life scenario, such as the NASA Artemis program. NASA's Artemis program is aimed at scientific discovery and preparing for human missions to Mars, and it therefore seems to align with the treaty's principles for peaceful exploration without territorial claims. To further support this, NASA introduced the Artemis Accords in 2020, seen as an addition to the Outer Space Treaty. Based on these accords, it is allowed to mine the moon's resources like water and minerals. But here's the catch. Just because you mine it doesn't mean you own it. The accords agree that mining doesn't give a country ownership over those moon rocks or ice. It's like saying, yes, you can use these resources to support your space mission, but you can't claim them as your own. This keeps exploration fair and in line with the idea that space is for everyone's benefit, not just for those who get there first. And although space powers like China and Russia have not signed the Artemis Accords, they have not contested it either. Which I believe makes sense given their own lunar plans. If you ban using the moon's resources, further exploring space becomes virtually impossible.
The head of Russia's space agency says the moon could be the launching pad to explore distant planets, including Mars.
But consider a scenario where NASA and another nation, such as China, target the same location for their lunar bases. Current space law doesn't provide clear resolution methods for such overlapping claims.
I don't want China to get to the South Pole first with humans and then say, this is ours, stay out.
While disputes over space activities could theoretically be brought to the International Court of Justice, there has yet to be such a case. As we step further into the era of space exploration, the need for an updated legal framework becomes more and more apparent. It is worth noting that there are relevant developments underway. The United Nations Office for Outer Space Affairs has set up a working group. They have ongoing sessions to discuss this topic, and I hope they make Hugo Grotius proud. In conclusion, building on the moon is not explicitly forbidden by current space law. Furthermore, using lunar resources for your mission seems to be allowed, but claiming them as your own is not. Let's hope for a future where space remains the domain for peaceful exploration and shared human progress. Thank you so much for watching. Please leave a like and subscribe if you enjoyed the video. That will really help me to keep making stuff like this in the future.